What's up, Wisconsin? Welcome back to the Inside Wisconsin show here on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. John Anderson, Trevor Thomas. It is the most wonderful time of the year. It is deer season, baby. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah. Honestly, I have thought many times around this time of year, as I'm having to put up Christmas lights, maybe I should take up hunting and sublet the Christmas lights job to someone else because it's so annoying and so terrible. And when it's ever like, we need to put up the Christmas lights, there's no we in it, right? It's J.A. has to go put up the Christmas lights. And
they
then,
do make ones that are permanent now, by the way.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe I should just get a gun and see if I can track down a deer, because that's got to be way less troubling than putting up Christmas lights. And yet I never have. And it's remarkable. My two brothers hunt. My older brother, Tim, really, he goes everywhere. Like he shoots anything, man. He's been to safaris. He's been to Montana getting a bear. Like the deer is kind of like, that's like the elementary school of what he does. But he gets out there, and my paternal father was a huge hunter of everything. You know, he was a really good shot with a beer, with birds and small animals. And a lot of times my mom would say he did that, because that's how they ate at the end of the month, because they didn't have any money. I don't know that he was a prolific deer hunter in any way, shape, or form. But all I know, Trev, is every time I went to school and Thanksgiving came, on Wednesday, everybody was out, and most of them were not going to Auntie Donna's house for turkey.
Nope.
Right? They were going into the woods.
Cabin. Absolutely.
They were going to you know where they were going? Up north.
Up north?
Yeah, got to go up north. That's where they were going.
Awesome.
Up north.
Up to deer camp we go. So up to deer camp we go in this episode. But just so you know, non-hunters, you'll have a blast listening to this episode. Deer hunting is so much more than just getting out and hunting. There's a huge statewide impact. There's a huge history piece. And so we called on those that know it the most, the Wisconsin DNR. So Jeff Pritzl joins us today on the Inside Wisconsin show, the deer program specialist, right, Jay?
Yeah, and I think I would be like I said, if we said, oh, here is name the Hall of Fame Packer, people would tune in right away. Like I found Jeff to be unbelievably interesting. And you are literally in two different camps. You're in deer camp, and I'm in camped on my couch. But there are just really some interesting things in it. It applies to everyone in the state, and there is really, I can't think of anything. We get joked about America's Dairyland, not joke, like pridefully about the cheese. And there's beer from the fine folks at Miller, and there are the Packers. But like deer hunting is every bit the part of this state, and it is like you can't have Wisconsin without. They're inseparable, and so I think folks will really enjoy this.
So let's jump in. Jeff Pritzl with the Wisconsin DNR on the Inside Wisconsin show.
The Inside Wisconsin show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Hey, remember to subscribe on YouTube, leave a review, smash the like button, just get with us. The idea of Quick Trip is all about people. That's why we all drive out of our own way to go to a Quick Trip. Yes, the food's good, the bathrooms are clean, the gas is gas, but it's about people. And it's about our experiences in the store, the see you next time, and so on, that makes us want to come to Quick Trip. The idea of serving people in a retail setting is bonkers, but that's why Quick Trip exists. It's to impact people's lives. And that's the whole idea of this. The Inside Wisconsin show and Quick Trip are teaming up because Quick Trip doesn't like to toot their own horn. Pretty humble company. Well, toot toot. We're gonna toot it for them and tell these stories on how Quick Trip is impacting our lives literally every day. This is Impact, presented by Quick Trip.
I came in one morning in a rush. We were late for school. I had to get my kids breakfast, so we went to the hot spot and grabbed some breakfast, and I tried paying and something was going on with my bank and I couldn't pay. It kept saying denied. I went to the ATM and it showed me my balance, and when I tried getting cash out, it was denied. And so here I was, nervous that my kids would go without breakfast, and we were putting things back, and Bud went over the headset when we were getting in the car and he said, "Marnie, come back in, I'm going to pay for you."
I said, well, I'd be happy to take care of it. You can pay me back tomorrow or whenever you come in again.
It shouldn't have surprised you because that's what QuikTrip does. Yet, how did that leave you feeling?
I just was amazed and grateful for what Bud did. Bud makes my kids' day. We come in and they are like, "Hi, Bud," and he knows my kids by name. He just makes them laugh, and we look forward to seeing him Monday through Friday before school. Amazing. Someone to look up to, Bud. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being a customer.
Lifelong.
Well, it's vice versa. I look forward to seeing them come in every day because they make me smile too.
Thank you so much, Bud. Bud, I'll see you tomorrow.
See you next time.
See you next time.
All right.
So when we have questions, we go to the regulations, and the regulations are here for this program today. The Deer Program Specialist from the Wisconsin DNR, Jeff Pritzl, on the Inside Wisconsin show. Jeff, thanks for bringing us up to speed on this upcoming deer season, man. Thanks for joining us.
You bet. Thanks for the coverage and the opportunity to share some stuff before the season.
Always good to see Trevor here with his twin brother. So glad to be with. So that's a really fancy title. Explain your job to me. Like, I know what a comedian does. I know what a quarterback does. What does that job mean?
Yeah. So the deer program specialist is I point that out. I'm the program specialist. I'm not necessarily the deer specialist or the deer biologist or a deer ecologist. There's a bunch of people in this state that know a heck of a lot more about deer than I do. But the deer program in Wisconsin has a really big social dynamic to it, and a cultural dynamic, and just a human element of where we're interacting with the public on how to set their season framework each year. So my role is really to help facilitate the program and work with the deer hunting community to review any policy changes and set the season every year. So it's a lot more people management than it is deer management, actually.
And I read where you said that people in the DNR, we know more about deer than we do deer hunters. So, like, what don't I know about a deer hunter that's missing? That, you know, that, like, in all seriousness, but like, what part of the job is there? What am I trying to find out about the deer hunter?
Well, deer hunting as a cultural experience is just changing pretty dramatically before our eyes in terms of, so what we don't know about deer hunters are what are their motivations, because there's this stereotypical deer hunter, right? And we think everybody wants to do it the same way and has the same objective. And that's really not the case at all. There's a wide variety of values and objectives that people bring to it. And that determines what their expectations are and what they're looking for from the season. And the age demographics of our deer hunter population is changing quite a bit. And that affects how the interface between the hunters and the deer plays out in terms of the harvest. And in Wisconsin, we've long used our harvest data to interpret what the deer population is doing in terms of the parallels between how many deer get harvested every year and how many deer must have been on the landscape. But as hunting culture is changing, it influences that harvest dynamic in ways that is kind of separating it from the actual presence of deer on the landscape. And so we need to learn a lot more about, again, what motivates hunters and how the changing demographics. I mean, the stark reality is, you know, we're losing overall participation. And this isn't unique to Wisconsin. Most of the eastern states are seeing the same thing. I mean, we've lost in Wisconsin about 100,000 deer hunters since the turn of the century. We were at 700,000 and now we're at about 600,000. And we know, looking at our age demographics and the hunter population, we're going to lose another 100,000 in the next 10 to 20 years. The state of Michigan's lost 250,000 deer hunters since the turn of the century. So that plays a lot into what our expectations are of what the harvest is going to be like. And so we need to understand that as much as we do what's going on in the world of the deer population.
Where are the people going? Like, I know there are few, like baby boomers and some generation. That's just simple kind of demographics of it. But where are they going?
Well, you're right on target there. The baby boomer generation hunted as a segment of that population for participation. I mean, when we're at just on the tail end of that, right? We're not quite baby boomers, you and I'm just a couple years younger than you, John. But when we came of age, deer hunting was a big part of the family fabric and the culture. And you just almost presumed like you were going to go deer hunting with your cousins and your uncles and your grandpa and your dad, just as like it was just presumed I was going to go out for football. And now the menu of things for the younger generations to choose from and how they want to spend their time is just so much more diverse. And there's still a bunch of avid kids coming into deer hunting that really have the same fever for it, that I did. But overall, it's diluted by just so many other opportunities for people to spend their recreational time.
It is certainly a part of the Wisconsin family, at least it was when I was growing up. Jeff, where did all that start? Where did deer hunting start here in the state of Wisconsin? What's the history?
Deer hunting really got its lift in Wisconsin almost as a side effect from the great logging era that happened across the Midwest. And so Wisconsin in the late 1800s, early 1900s, our ancestors were up north clearing the forest, creating a lot of lumber for the growing cities. And people went to these logging camps and they spent the winter there. And after that cycle ended, it created, first of all, a landscape that was going to become much better for deer. Deer do better in young forests. And so actually the historic old forest of northern Wisconsin really didn't hold a lot of deer. Once they cleared it off, got rid of a lot of the pines and stuff, I mean, that was a dramatic, in a lot of ways, considered to be a negative impact, but it created a window of opportunity to rejuvenate that forest. And so and then we had a bunch of young forest on the landscape. And now you had all these empty logging camps that were looking to be repurposed. And so somebody got the bright idea that, hey, we could repurpose we got these railroad tracks now that are going into northern Wisconsin, but we don't have anybody coming up here to harvest trees anymore. What if we could get people convinced that this would be a great place to come to go hunting and fishing? And because that forest was regrowing, it meant it turned into really good deer habitat. And so for decades, I'm talking started pre-World War II, but really after World War II. And that was the other part of it. After World War II, a bunch of people came home from the war, had familiarity with firearms, and were looking for other ways to put them to work in a more positive way. And that really was the birth of deer hunting in northern Wisconsin post-World War II. You had this great habitat, the idea of going up and hanging out in these deer camps, and people really connected with that. And then that proliferated for decades.
I buy the nurture versus nature thing when it comes to hunting. So my paternal father, who Trevor knows, passed away when he was very young. He was a hunter. I still have his rifle. He passed away when I was six months old. I still have his rifles. I have his fishing tackle. My sister can remember him taking her through the woods to shoot squirrel and rabbits out in Iowa. He could shoot pheasant like crazy. And then he passed away when I was 6 months old. And I have all this stuff, and I've never used it. I've never had the desire to. My dad that raised me was a football guy. We went to the Packer games and never did that, which is always just very crazy. Like I wrote Remington one time about these rifles that I had, and my shotgun and my uncle, who was a hunter, he had packed them away, grease and flannel and sawed. Like he had really taken them apart. They were amazing. And so I put them in bed, and I sent the serial numbers, and they're just like, I wouldn't shoot those. Like if anything happened to them, there's nothing to, like, we think they're good. They should hold up. We love our quality of our work, but there's nothing in these rifles that were, that your dad had from 1960 or 55. He got his first one when he was like 12 that would ever do that again. So I do think what you talk about is, and Trevor, did the boys hunt with you?
Sorry, tickle in my throat. Say it again.
Do the boys hunt with you?
Not yet. They got to go through hunter safety.
But they will, right?
Oh, yeah, they will.
Yeah, so I think it's just amazing how that some of that is really a learned response of how of whether people do it or not. I tell people, like, I have no moral objection to it. Some people are like, oh my gosh, like, I get the idea of why you do that. It's funny to me though how it is what you describe as this learned activity, and it's almost, you're kind of either born into it or you are not.
Yeah, there was a lot of that where it really was a generational thing, and we depended on parents and grandparents to pass that on down. And I similarly for me, my father was not a deer hunter. It was my grandfather. And had he not taken me under his wing and exposed me to that, I may have never caught the bug, didn't get exposed to it. But I also have experience with kids who get the full exposure and it just doesn't click with them. My own son being the perfect example of that. As a teenager, he had all kinds of opportunity and experience. He had some successful deer hunts, successful turkey hunts. He's in his mid-20s now, and hunting really isn't his thing. And it wasn't for a lack of exposure or opportunity. And so sometimes I get approached by people that say, oh, how am I going to get my children interested? There's not enough deer. And I'm like, that's not necessarily the key, because my son had all the opportunity in the world and it didn't really click with him. And when I was a kid, it wasn't that great of an opportunity experience wise. I didn't have much success in my youthful years, but I still got the fever and got locked in on it. And it's been with me my entire life. But now what we're seeing is, the fascinating thing now is we are seeing what we refer to as adult onset hunters. So it's not too late, John, but we have a lot of people in there, anywhere from their 20s to their 50s, that did not grow up as a hunter, but they're very interested in this, sustainable food movement and where's my food coming from, and is it being obtained sustainably? Deer hunting falls right into that. And so that the appeal of, hey, I can go out, harvest my own protein and it's wild. They're getting into that. So we have a fair amount of adults now that are trying to find hunting, later in life.
Jeff, you were talking about how we don't have as many hunters, yet 600,000 people heading into the woods on one weekend with firearms, bigger than most armies. That's what they call it, the Orange Army. The stats behind that are fascinating. How many people are still older age and how many younger? And then we know that you can go hunting with a parent or a mentor or something without having to go through hunter safety. Do we know how many of those super young kids are actually out there hunting?
It's a handful. We certainly see them, from age 5 to 6 up into that 12. There's been certain developments in weapons, whether it be youth model firearms or crossbows for archery hunting. And we've come a long way in terms of having permanent deer stands that provide a much more comfortable environment to sit in, which there's another twist to that maybe we talk about later in the experience, but it's not a lot. And again, it's bringing them in that young isn't really the key to promoting it in for the future. But it's I kind of lost my train of thought as far as where we're going in terms of the numbers, but
just the super young hunters. Yeah. I mean, so many of these people are out there with their young kids. I mean, my boys are 13 and 14, and they just didn't show me the maturity that I thought they needed at the age of 12 to handle a firearm. Whereas there's some kids that are out there with dad that are 8 or 6, or, I mean, seriously young kids.
Yeah. And that's the rule that was put in place to specify and make sure we're doing things in a safe manner was that, like you mentioned, it's the mentored hunting law, which means if you're going to hunt in that situation, it's one weapon between the two individuals, the mentor and the mentee, and they have to be within arm's reach of the hunter at all times so that they have the ability to step in and help, manage a situation. And then, but the bottom line is statistically, and this is nationally, those are not the high risk situations where when we do hear about the infrequent accidents, it's not the kids that are creating those accidents. They're the ones that are either being very supervised or fresh through the training. It's really older hunters that have been doing this for so long, they become complacent with some of those safety rules. And that's why every year we promote the safety rules over and over again, because we have seen great success of really limiting accidents associated with, especially with weapons and weapon discharge. Half of the time when there is a weapons related accident, half of the time it's self-inflicted. And the other, in all of them, it's simple mishandling of the firearm that created a discharge when it wasn't intended to go off. And so, but we've really, really minimized those over the decades, thanks in a large part to a large group of volunteer hunter education instructors that, we do it online now as well, but it's that exposure to that has really made a big difference. To the point where the real safety risks now, most people are going to hurt themselves either in a fall from an elevated tree stand or just overexertion. Those are the bigger risks than actually the firearms themselves.
Is that a misconception you have to fight? Is that Trevor said 600,000 people going in the woods. Oh, this is dangerous. Like, I'm going to be out there and I'm, it seems like that might be the biggest thing that you have to push back against.
Yeah, and that's an understandable perception when you just think about that. Yes, 600,000 people with firearms all out in the state on one weekend. It seems almost a miracle that there aren't, more incidents. But I mean, you go back to, when I was back in the 60s, blaze orange wasn't required. We would have 30 to 40 fatalities during the deer season. It's just amazing that where we've come to where the goal, we had no fatalities last year, and that's the way we, want to see it play out every year.
So you mentioned firearm safety, and then there's tree stand safety. I remember when I was young, we would sit in tree stands, and it was almost like you weren't tough if you had a harness, right? What do you need a harness for? I can hear some of the guys in the old
sit on a branch. Forget the stand. Just sit on a branch.
Climb the tree,
yeah.
And then bring your gun up with a rope or put it, whatever it was. Yet today it's a big deal, right? And I never, ever, ever hunt without a harness. I'm never in a tree without a harness, and almost always I'm attached to the tree by a safety rope as I'm going up to my stand. And I know a couple guys who are insanely serious and safe hunters, and both of them fell out of their tree. One was on his way up to a tree stand. He wasn't connected to the tree. And the other was putting up a tree stand, and he wasn't connected to the tree. And both of those guys are lucky to be alive. And one of them broke their neck, and he's still talking, walking today. How important is the safety aspect, even without the firearm now?
Yeah, it's critical because, like I said, there's such consequences to a moment. You just you get complacent. You think, I've been up and down this thing 100 times. What can happen? And one slip off a rung on a ladder, or your first time back in the stand is in the dark in the morning. You haven't been in it since last year, and something happened to it. A piece of wood got rotten or something like that. And you don't know what might give way. And that's when, being in that harness and having that rope is going to be the difference between, a pretty potentially serious accident and being able to just say, whoa, that was close.
So we keep talking. We've focused here on the hunter, and there's some diminishing numbers, which is a concern for you. Let's talk about population the other way. If we don't have hunting and we don't thin the herd, which is essentially what we're doing, like, how long before we have a problem, both for the animal who might not be able to eat, or they become invasive, right? And they're all over. Like, how long that would that take for them to proliferate like that?
Well, it depends on the landscape. In Wisconsin, and I'm sure other states have the same situation, but we really have two different stories playing out in Wisconsin. And it's that what we call the forested zones, or the dominant forested areas versus the agricultural areas. The farmland zones in the state are highly productive, and it doesn't take long at all for a deer population to grow to a point where it would erupt and cause lots of consequences. And quite honestly, that's probably already happened in parts of the southern Wisconsin, and we've been dealing with this for a couple of decades, where we've been challenged with harvesting an adequate number of antlerless deer. In the northern forest, that land, again, when it's young and there's a lot of timber harvest activity going on, it can produce good deer densities, but it's slowly producing fewer and fewer deer because we're seeing less and less active logging going on in the landscape. And you have that aspect of winter in the northern part of the state can come in some years and be really severe, and that can knock the deer herd back. So in the northern part of the state, Mother Nature still pretty much takes care of whether the deer population is going to be up or down, and it does fluctuate quite a bit. In the southern part of the state, we definitely are at a point where Deer have adjusted and adapted to our landscape, the way we utilize the land, our residential areas, and they are having a major impact on the natural vegetative community to their own demise. They're preferential browsers, so they eat their favorite stuff first. And when that's gone, then they move on to the next thing, and to a point where certain high quality aspects of their habitat and the vegetation is just gone and it can't reproduce. And then the deer numbers, they don't necessarily go down, but their vigor, their body size starts to shrink, and their ability to fight off diseases and stuff like that gets less. And so they're just, the quality of life for the deer themselves is not as good. And then there's these side impacts because they're going to potentially create property damage, agricultural crop damage, damage on the highways when we hit them with our vehicles. And I get feedback from a lot of non-hunters now that are asking us, they're like, what's up with all these deer and what are you going to do about it? And when we talk about, well, the role of recreational deer hunting, they ask a very good question where they say, well, are the deer hunters, are they actually managing this deer population? Or am I putting up with all these deer because this is what the hunting community wants? And the hunting community would say, no, we would like to harvest more deer, but really a lot of deer now are living in areas that we would consider sanctuary that they don't have access to. And so that's a challenge that a lot of more residential or municipal areas are dealing with. And so there's creative ways to, and some communities are doing that by allowing more hunting within city limits, dealing with this perception of safety versus what's in the best interest of both the deer and the people. And my message to deer hunters now has been, you need to think about your role as a deer hunter, not just for your own personal interests, but your role as a hunter for the community as a whole, because you want that 80%, that 85% of Wisconsinites that don't deer hunt to look at you as an asset, not as a liability, and value, what you're providing as a service, essentially, along with your recreational pursuits. And hunters for thousands of years were organized that way, where a segment of the population was a hunter for the community as a whole. And that's really where we're still at.
All right, we got to take a quick break. More with Jeff Pritzl, the deer czar. Yeah, we'll go with that. The deer czar with the Wisconsin DNR. Back in a bit, the Inside Wisconsin Show.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Hey, remember to subscribe on YouTube, leave a review, smash the like button, just get with us. All right, so deer camp is called a lot of things. Some people call it deer camp or deer hunting. Other people call it beer hunting or deer drinking. Either way, There's a huge economic impact in Wisconsin, and I wonder how much of that is Miller Lite sales. It's got to be way up there.
Do you have anybody that's like, let's go hunting, and they never pick it up? They're like, I'll just be here when you all get back.
Yeah, that's called.
They're kind of glampers that kind of just like, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to have my Miller Lite and you guys have at it. But he doesn't want to miss the social aspect of it. He also doesn't want to, ammunition. He just wants to sit and hang out.
Those exist for sure.
You got
sit
those
and
people?
play cards and drink Miller Lite. Absolutely. Yeah. I call it a holiday for a reason, because the family really does come back together, and some of them don't hunt. So it's the camp cook or the person that keeps the beer cold or whatever, or a lot of times they'll come out and help track if you wounded one, and off you go. But I've called it a holiday before in the past. It's my favorite holiday of the season. It's the opener of deer season, and you can do it safely, and you can have a couple 2-3 Miller Lights and play some euchre. Do you play cards, John? Are you a card player?
So I do. I don't play euchre. I don't know how to play sheep's head or shaska, right? That's another kind of local game. I know, like, all my card playing was my grandmother and grandparents and all those people. So they're all kind of Iowa versions of the game, Iowa 500 and different things like that. But but yeah, like I said, I know all those. I can't participate, which means I wouldn't be hunting and I wouldn't be playing cards, but I can still drink Miller Lite. I'm very good at that. Everybody's got a skill in life, Trevor. So don't look down your nose at me. Don't patronize me here. Okay.
No, you're good. I see your skill, and
by the way, as the holiday season goes, Thanksgiving is also a holiday that's right around this time, and that's also family getting together and a good reason to have Miller Lite.
Also true. Making memories at year-end gatherings. That's what it's all about. Tastes like Miller time. Go to MillerLite.com/Inside Wisconsin to find delivery options near you, or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer. Shout out to the Haas brothers, who both suck at euchre. We'll just leave it there. Time for another top 5 list on the Inside Wisconsin show, as always, presented by the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, which, by the way, offers an online master's degree at UW-Platteville. It can put you on the path for personal and professional success. Time to boost up that resume and your earning potential with an online master's degree in engineering, criminal justice, or business. Learn more and apply today. UW-Platteville, a smart investment. All right, so top 5 list time. I'm excited for this one because usually I'm the guy getting quizzed and I don't know the answers. And there's a chance. I'm not saying that John's the city slicker you call yourself.
You're not getting quizzed. We're just questioning your judgment.
There's that.
When I do that, that's all. But there's a difference.
It feels like being quizzed.
Listen, I'm already feeling ganged up on here by you two, but that's fine. Let's go.
Because you have hair and we don't.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Yep,
all right. Let's go.
Nice of you. All right. 5 questions for John. We'll see how many he can get right. Some of these are multiple choice, some are not. So here's number 5.
Do I look annoyed? I'm annoyed. Okay, just I'm totally annoyed by this. Let's go.
Fine. Here we go. Here is number 5. 50% of a gun deer hunter's outer clothing above the waist needs to be blaze orange, and or this color is also approved. Any idea what you can wear besides blaze orange?
Besides blaze orange, which is crazy because I don't know why you all roll in there camouflage and then the deer can't see the color anyway, you know? So what's the other color that would be distracting? I don't like orange and red are the same thing. You're colorblind. What do you even care? You are. I don't know what deer are, but Trevor is. He can't tell. I don't know, like Highway Patrol yellow or whatever that is.
Okay, it is not. Jeff, do you know the answer?
I do, because the legislature changed it above at least 5 years ago now. They allow fluorescent pink as a safety color.
Ah, so great. So we're shooting things and we have breast cancer awareness. I love that. It's a great combination.
And it was a nod to be more inclusive and welcome, women into the hunting community. And of course, that got split between people that appreciated that and people thought that was being too patronizing. But that's people.
Yeah, that's people. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Very good.
Pink is the answer. All right. Here's number 4. You can shoot a deer with a gun during gun season. You can shoot a deer with a bow or a crossbow during bow and crossbow season. Sure. The question is, can you shoot a deer, John, with a bow or a crossbow during gun season and use your gun tag?
Well, I would say, yeah, but the tag thing, I don't even know. Like, why we have to legislate this
here we go.
Is beyond me, right?
The answer is yes. Okay, the answer is yes.
I would think, of course you could. That'd be dumb.
Well, but you can't use a gun for bow season. Yeah, you can. All right, number 3 left. In order to be considered antlerless, a deer must have 0 antlers or antlers under this many inches. Is it under 2 inches, under 3 inches, or under 4 inches?
Seriously? 2 inches difference is going to make it is the thing here?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You got to get your
I just drag this through and somebody eyeballs it. This is like a ref at the first down. I don't know. I feel like we're going to have to go under the hood. That might be 2 inches too high. Like, what are we kidding? It's the same thing. So I'll go Jeff? 2. I'll go 2.
It is under, Jeff.
It's under 3. And that's been a long-standing thing in Wisconsin. And I'm not sure if that's where other states treat it, but it's just trying to address the fact that really small antlers are going to be hard to see, from a distance. And we have first-year buck fawns that technically put antlers on, but they never get to be 3 inches. And so you can't just say antlered or antlerless because you've got these really small antlers that aren't part of the adult buck population. But at any rate, people have to just kind of, if it's close, you don't shoot if you only have authority for a buck. But if you've got an antlerless tag.
Right.
You're
If
covered.
it's close, but 2 to 4 is close. Like if I was wrestling the thing and was breaking its neck, I wouldn't know if it's 2 to 4, let alone if I'm, a distance away through my scope. That's just, I feel like that should be all or nothing. Go ahead, see if we can legislate that. We'll call that the Anderson rule. I love that. Just if you see something, then it's just dumb. We'll just do it as opposed to go, boy, what if that's 3 1/8?
Well, yeah, it's you got to draw a line somewhere, and that's been
at least if I pull
line
a
for decades.
At least if I pull a fish out, I've got the ruler on the cooler where I go, oh yeah, that looks good, and I can throw it back. This is a little harder. How do I explain that to you guys? I get some rogue DNR agent goes, dude, this is 3 1/2. That's okay. That's a dumb rule.
Okay, number 2. How many feet away from the center of the road do you have to be in order to be hunting legally? Is it 50 feet away from the center of the road, 150 feet, or 250 feet?
So now I got to measure this. I didn't know I have to bring so many measuring devices with this thing. So just for my own safety, I would like you 150 feet off the road. I don't know if that's right, but this is what I need in my life.
That might be what you feel safe with. Jeff, what's the answer?
It's actually only 50 feet, which isn't very far when you stand 50 feet away. But that's again, long-standing rule in the state.
Plus, if you turn around, you're like, you get some road rage, you can just take a guy off.
No,
that's not great. At least 150. I feel like I'd be I'm in the field, or I'm in the forest far enough. But all right, that's fine.
All right, here's the last question. If you were born on January 1st of this date up until today, meaning if you were born after January 1st in this year, you're required to have
I know how a calendar works. Thanks.
Okay. Hunter's safety is required, and it started in this year, meaning if you were born, all right, so is it 1963, 1973, or 1983?
Wow. So this is like horse racing. Everybody has the same birthday, as long as it's on January 1st. By the way, is Hunter's safety at 8 years old? Is that what I heard? Is that where it goes? 8 years old?
There is actually, as in most states now, there's no age requirement. It is up to the parent. And so it used to be 12, and they did away with the age minimum. Oh, again, about the same time they allowed fluorescent pink.
See, and I thought I'd heard in one Wisconsin legislative session, you had to be in your car seat till you're 8, and then you could start gun safety at 8. And here, out of your car seat, and here's a rifle. I don't even know what was ninth gun safety was when? 19, what'd you say? What are the
so it's either 63, 73, or 83, meaning if you were born before January 1st of this year. Yeah.
So 63, I don't think so. 63, we didn't even need seat belts, and we thought cigarettes were good for you. So I'm going to get rid of 63.
Okay.
73, same thing. I think you just could put a kid in the back dashboard of a Corvair and drive all over. So I'll go 83. When I graduated high school, like me, everybody got good sense in 83.
Sure. Jeff?
73.
All right. Well, close enough. At least I would have been an 8-year-old. See, I would have been
John,
8. That's perfect.
You could technically walk into Wisconsin today and buy a license, and you would get it. Just read the regulations first, I think.
Because I am literally, because I'm old, grandfathered in.
You are.
I don't need gun safety. I can just go ahead and thanks. Can I conceal and carry? I don't know all those rules yet right now. Or we still have some common gun sense laws. We
do. Okay, yeah, we'll cover those in the rest. Thanks for participating in the top 5, Jeff. We appreciate you.
You bet.
We are back, the first deer hunting episode of the Inside Wisconsin show. Almost 100 episodes in. We finally got to bring on somebody to talk about hunting. I'm so jacked. So at the time of this airing, the Wisconsin deer season is upon us. The gun deer season starts on Saturday of the week before Thanksgiving. Has it always been that way, though? Because you could talk to some hunters who maybe have a spot in Missouri where John just decided to settle, and it's earlier. I think Minnesota is earlier. Why is it the time of year here in Wisconsin that it is?
Well, yeah, the timing of the season dates is really a cultural thing as much as it is biological. And for as long as I can remember in Wisconsin, it's the gun season has started the Saturday before Thanksgiving. And that was created during a period in time when there were not nearly as many deer in the state. And it was felt that we needed to allow the deer's breeding season to fully carry out and be completed before we did our hunting season, to make sure that the does were pregnant and they'd have a chance to contribute to more deer next year. And so that was kind of how it got started. And at that time, the hunting was almost exclusively firearm hunting, and it was for that week period of time. But over the last 30 years, as an expression of people's, I think, enthusiasm for deer hunting, more and more people have taken up archery hunting because it allows them more time in the woods and more access. And so now we're at a point where over half of our 600,000 deer hunters are archers. And so half of our deer hunters have already been hunting for quite some time before the gun season even starts. But we talk about, should we change the date and make it earlier, make it later? Really, the department doesn't take a position on that. That's a cultural decision. And as you mentioned, Minnesota and Michigan, they both start their firearm seasons a little earlier. It takes advantage of being closer to that breeding season and a little more deer activity on the landscape. That's the one thing about our deer season, and especially this year, because it's always the Saturday before Thanksgiving that rotates on the calendar. And so this year, it just so happens that Thanksgiving is as late as it can be on the calendar, which means our gun opener is as late as it can be. And that 1 week difference actually has a negative influence on deer sightability, because deer are becoming less and less active during daylight hours. And back in the old days, a lot of us, when we were all gun deer hunting, part of the objective was get the deer moving. We would get out in the woods, we'd do deer drives. We'd recognize that we needed to get the deer moving. And today's strategy, our gun hunters have really adopted what the archers are doing, and that is to take a very stationary, I'm going to pick a good spot and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to wait for the deer to come to me, which can be a great strategy. But when everybody's doing that and the deer don't want to move on their own, we don't see deer. And then everybody complains that, well, the deer population must be down because the kill is down. But part of that reflects our change in hunting strategy.
How many deer are there? Because first off, I'm assuming whatever number you give me, I'll double, because where there's one, there's two. At least that's how I've always been told. You got to, it's the first thing I told my kids when they get in the car. Careful. When you see the first one, there's two. So I don't know if your number includes them being doubled or if I have to double your number. But how many deer do we have in the state?
Yeah. Well, if you use that strategy, John, you'd actually be doing the opposite of what most people do when they hear the DNR say how many deer there are, because they assume we're doubling it because we're trying to promote more license sales.
Right.
And so when I say there's going into the deer season, almost 2 million deer on the landscape in Wisconsin, I get a lot of strange looks and people going, well, you're just making that up and you're trying to promote more deer licenses. We didn't see that many deer. But the challenge is those deer are very unevenly distributed on the landscape. And so like anything else in life, you have people that are in very fortunate situations and you have people that are trying to make it work, but they're just not lined up for it. And so you get the full breadth of people that said, there's tons of deer. I had the best deer season ever. And at the same time, 5 miles away, somebody will say, what are they talking about? There's no deer.
Mm-hmm.
So we know in Wisconsin not to talk about religion or politics in the bar, but deer hunting is quickly becoming a third because there's an opinion. Now, what's the question, right? How do you at the DNR handle that? I mean, there's 600,000 hunters. Some of us choose to hunt with a crossbow because it's legal. My God, do you want to make the original OG actual compound bow hunters mad? Tell them you use a crossbow. Or tell them that there's more deer than we know what to do with. This is a
What are you, Robin Hood?
Some are. Some guys are. There's a lot of guys that are Robin Hood type of guys.
Yeah, well, what you're getting at, and it's part of actually what I find fascinating about this job and why I took it kind of late in my career, because the human dimensions aspect of it is really fascinating. And deer hunting is really a microcosm of our culture as a whole. We've got people from both sides of the aisle. We've got, as I said earlier, people with lots of varying opinions. There's no one way to do it right, but people that are really avid about it, they feel there is only one right way to do it. And if you're not doing it the way I do it, you're doing it wrong. And so it certainly creates a lot of opportunity for people to Monday morning quarterback, and they do that to us. I mean, after opening weekend of the gun season, we'll share, here's what the harvest was. And people will spend a lot of time on Monday and the Monday after the season second guessing and telling us what we did right or wrong. And there's an analogy there to, the weekend of football. We've got, again, Monday morning quarterbacks love to, come in and break down and try to do their own analysis of what we're doing right or wrong. And in the end, they do recognize that we have a responsibility as an agency to manage the resource to create the opportunity for people to have. Now, how they choose to use that opportunity, how it plays out for them, it's going to be very different. And that has always been one of the challenges of this and with deer management is you're never going to make everybody happy. And as an agency, we're always talking about it at a scale that doesn't really connect well with the individual hunter because their sphere of experience and influence is much smaller. And I can say, oh, there's 20,000 deer in your county, which should be plenty, but I can't tell you where those 20,000 are. And somebody might be hunting in an area that's got 100 deer per square mile, and somebody else is hunting in an area that's got 5 deer per square mile. And the average might be, 50. But if I say it's 50 deer per square mile, people feel like, well, that sounds like a deer behind every tree. And they have a hard time believing that. And I understand that, but it keeps it interesting. That's for sure.
Trev, I had no idea that politics, religion, and deer hunting are now off the table.
Yep.
Because I'm willing to tangle on all of those whenever it happens.
It doesn't feel off the table for me.
What'd you say, Jeff?
I said it doesn't feel off the table for me. It's
no doubt.
on the table every day for me.
Yeah.
But some things are universal for whatever they are, right? People are going to buy something blaze orange. They need their equipment. I don't know if this is your area or not, but what is the economic impact? I got to follow the money of deer hunting in Wisconsin. What's spent?
Sure. So there's been studies on this to try to capture it, and in general, the general term in Wisconsin, as it's referenced, is there's $1 billion of economic activity associated with hunting in Wisconsin. So that's all hunting, but that's deer hunting, dominates that for sure. And so it definitely is an economic engine to a certain degree, in terms of, the tourism it generates, the equipment purchase. And one of the interesting things that a lot of non-hunters don't appreciate is that the licenses that hunters are buying really are like a membership fee to your annual club, to the Y or something like that. It's an investment in the infrastructure that allows everyone to recreate, because that money goes into the conservation fund that gets habitat work on public lands and all sorts of things. And on top of that, the equipment that we purchase has a self-imposed excise tax on it. So that generates another pot of money that gets turned back for the states to use and invest in conservation work. And so that small group of people that are hunting in the state carry a pretty big load in terms of allowing conservation work to happen, aside from the general business work that happens in terms of the flow of money back and forth. So we really depend on that to do our conservation work.
Well, leave it to the DNR to have a train whistle in their background. That's the first time that's happened. That's outstanding. All right. How do we go about these changes? So there's been things in my time hunting like earn a buck, and then CWD came around, and that whether it's early season or cultural reasons, when a change happens, why does it happen, and how do you go about making those decisions?
Sure. That's a great question, because I think a lot of people just assume, and I hear this all the time, well, the DNR just does whatever we want, right? We call our own shots, and we have a lot of people say, well, you don't listen. But really, in the end, what we deal with and what we have for our regulations and our policies are a reflection of the public will, because we have a very set process by which we do any rule changes that really values public engagement. Now, a very small portion of the hunting community chooses to engage in that, but they come to the table. We have a unique organization in Wisconsin called the Wisconsin Conservation Congress. It's set up just like the regular Congress, where every county has delegates that are elected, and they have joint standing with the DNR in terms of advising our Natural Resources Commission on any policy changes. So the public that chooses to get involved has the opportunity. We have a rule process. It sometimes can take years, but I deal with several rules that started with a grassroots effort. They said, hey, I think this would be a good idea. And then we have a rulemaking process by which, and we work with the Conservation Congress, where an idea is introduced. And then if it gets public support, it lives another day and it comes back as a formal rule change proposal. And if it continues to get public support, it gets enacted as a rule change. And so it's always a work in progress. And that's one of the challenges that I face, because hunting has such ties to tradition and just the fact that it should always be done this way. But the reality is it's always changing, and it's always going to be changing. Change is hard. And when we see some of these changes kind of bump up against what we consider part of our traditions, it's really hard. And so, but I enjoy that part of helping people look at the statistics, look at the data, so that they can make informed decisions and come to the recognition of when it's time to make a change. It's not just because somebody thought it was a good idea and there's not much thought behind it. We try to, bring in the data to help support the decision making, but in the end, it is the public's decision. In a lot of cases, it's not just the agency, deciding for them what we want to do.
So that's how rules are changed and adapted and made. And then there's rule enforcement, and those guys are called the wardens. So when a warden is out, and I say it that way because you can be an ultimate rule follower. That is me. When it comes to deer hunting, my friends, they have a nickname for me that I cannot say on this channel, but let's just say that I follow all the rules. Okay?
You know the difference between 3 inches and 4 inches.
Yes, I do. Thanks. When a warden shows up in the woods, or a warden shows up at your deer camp, or if you even hear that a warden is in your neighborhood, everybody kind of goes, oh, why? Why is that? And maybe how do they choose to go where they go? I know you can't tell us why, because then here they come, they're coming.
Yeah, right. Well, so a couple of things there. One, how do they choose where they're going to go and how they're going to spend their time during the deer season? They actually get a lot of cooperation from, concerned people on the ground that are aware of something's going on over here that's, shouldn't. We know there's a violation. So they get a lot of tips from concerned, hunters and conservationists that want to make sure people are doing it right. And then when they decide, all right, what's our top priorities? Where are we going to spend our time? Obviously, public safety is number one. So if as it relates to firearm handling and those types of things, I mean, that's definitely a priority. But then they really are about, I want to make sure people are having a good time, they're having a safe experience, and that the resource is being utilized in an equitable manner for everybody, so that we don't have individuals that are doing things that would be considered, call it cheating or poaching or whatever, that not only might hamper the resource, but it really is taking away from somebody else having the chance to have a legitimate, really positive experience. And so they kind of look at it from that perspective. And but again, they rely a lot on, most of our counties have maybe one conservation warden for the whole county. So they do rely on the eyes and ears of other hunters that are out there. And so they'll spend a fair amount of their time simply responding to tips they're getting from people out in the public.
So we talked about culturally, the relationship between hunters and sort of familial. You've talked about, Trevor, that sometimes there is friction between these people. The relationship I find most curious in hunters, I think this is broader than just deer hunting. What is the deal with the relationships between hunters and their dogs? I have seen people that would sooner lose a spouse than their dog. And I have never had a dog. I like them, but I've never. What is the deal with hunters and their dogs?
Well, I can speak to that, having myself just come off of a week-long trip with my Black Labrador Retriever. And again, I have to say, I'm the state deer program specialist. I'm not the state's best deer hunter. Matter of fact, my options of how I like to spend my time hunting, I'd rather go bird hunting with my dog, quite frankly, because just to what you're trying to get at, I think there's something about that partnership and that sense of what the relationship and the training that went into what we're doing, to where you work in tandem with someone who you're communicating with, but it's a different species, for gosh sakes, and yet you can communicate to a common goal, and when it works, it's just really a satisfying feeling. And like I said, I feel guilty when I'm out bow hunting for deer, because it's like my dog would much rather we go waterfowl hunting or pheasant hunting or something like that. And frankly, I'd rather spend time with the dog too.
So does he rustle up birds, or is he into the water to go fetch them? Like I do admire the animal when he goes to work.
Yeah. So in the world of, there's let's say 3 different categories of hunting dogs, and 2 that are associated with bird hunting. Now, we're totally off the deer hunting subject now, but that's
okay. Because
we were in a southern state. There are some southern states
look at Trevor's grin. He wants to talk about his dog too, don't you, Trevor?
Yeah, I do. Merlin is the man. I love that guy.
Cool. Yeah. So my dog is a flushing dog. And and then there's pointing dogs, and that's 2 different strategies of bird hunting dogs. And then you have the hound dogs that help trail and find game that's hard to get close to, whether it be, raccoons or bears or even rabbits, that kind of stuff. So there's those 3 different categories, and they take a time commitment to do right. And again, you establish these relationships and, with the animal. And yeah, it's just, there's a reason there's lots of good books written about those relationships. And it's something that, and it keeps you out there. It keeps you going. Sometimes you're motivated to go, on the dog's behalf. And so, yeah, they become part of the family for sure. And and some of them, like, they're just, people used to, and I think in the old days, the hunting dog was looked at more as a utilitarian tool. It was kept outside in a kennel. And there's probably still some of that goes on out of either necessity in certain situations, but these dogs are part of the family. And, my dog's a great companion year round, even outside of the hunting season.
100%. Dogs are a part of the family without a doubt. All right, we'll wrap it up. Jeff Pritzl, deer program specialist and dog lover as well, from the Wisconsin DNR. Back in a second, the Inside Wisconsin Show.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Hey, remember to subscribe on YouTube. Leave a review. Smash the like button. Just get with us. Holiday meals right around the corner. Let Festival Foods help. You can go to festfoods.com/holiday-meals. Everything is right there, and you can actually place your order and then pick it up through Click and Go. You don't have to stand in line if you don't want to, even though some people do. Do you do the shopping for the Thanksgiving meal, J.A.? You don't do the shopping. Okay. Do you do the preparing?
I can. Oddly enough, what I can do is I can make a pecan pie. I have my grandmother's recipe. Hey. But you and I have gone through this, and I don't want to renew old hostilities of you having the wrong vegetables, of you having cheesy potatoes, which is dumb. We can't go through this. So I'm trying to make this one of the holidays where we don't fight. We can get everything. I will say this about my family right now. They're planning this, and I'm actually going to get to be home for Thanksgiving, which is great. And they said, since you're coming from so far away, John, you don't have to bring anything.
Oh,
I'd like to participate. So I keep threatening to bring a ham. I'm like, what if I just cure a ham? What if I brought it? I can spiral cut that. And they are just adamant. Like, no, you don't bring anything. And so now I've dug in that I'm going to bring a ham. So, okay. And I'm sure there's a list of all kinds of festival food ham that I could get, right? Like, I'm not talking deli meat. Like, I want a big honking, shank, and I want it maple cured, and I want to bring it because, but I'm receiving some resistance on that.
Don't forget what Festival Foods has and you can go. You'll be in town. You're doing this. Ready?
I know they'll have a ham.
They have turkey butter too.
Well, of course, that's just come on. There's few things in my life you can thank me for. One,
Yep, that's one.
Helping with this project, yes, and B, turkey. But like, if there's two things, and someday if you have to give my eulogy, you can just go, listen. We really enjoyed a fruitful partnership in Inside Wisconsin, and without him, I would not have known to go to Festival Food and find turkey butter.
I got it.
So these are the things, and then somewhere you'll see me in the casket roll over, say something about you, and you're still wrong about cheesy potatoes, but
yeah,
the green bean casserole, which is gross.
Whatever, to each their own. Bestfoods.com, they have it all, whether you want to make cheesy potatoes or green meat casserole with the onions up top, which a lot of people do, or go get a ham. Happy Thanksgiving. All right, we're back to wrap it up, the deer hunting episode, the first ever, not the last hopefully, but the first ever. Trevor, John, Jeff Pritzl with the Wisconsin DNR. All right, 2 for me, and then the lightning round. So here's my first one. Jeff, what hunting or deer hunting specifically superstitions do you have? You got to have some.
It's a Braunschweiger sandwich for lunch and anise hard candy in my pocket in case I get a dry throat to keep me from coughing and scaring deer away.
That's awesome. I refuse to carry my knife with me when I'm in the woods, because that is just expecting that I'm going to shoot or kill something. So I leave it back at camp, and if I get one, then I will go back and get the knife and do the thing. It's never on me. All right, last one. I don't know if you can tell me or not. It's kind of like UFOs. Is Bigfoot real?
I'm a skeptic. As a scientist, I'm afraid I'm a skeptic.
Oh,
so you're saying there's a chance. I got it. All right,
yeah.
Jay.
So wait, if you were going to look for Bigfoot, would you carry your knife, Trevor, or would you how would that work?
Do I have a gun?
I don't know. Good
yeah,
Lord.
I think so.
This is what I work with, Jeff.
Yeah.
This is what I work with.
That's I always
People
thought.
Go, wow, 26 shows. Why don't you do it every week? That right there is why we don't do this every week.
Wow.
That simple. Okay, so I am at my heart a track and field guy, but I really like field over track. Do you prefer field or stream?
That's a tough one because I go back and forth. I'm going to get later in life. I'm going to be stream because I really enjoy fly fishing as much as I do hunting, and I'll be able to do that maybe a little bit longer. But I'm in both of them. And in track, I was a long jumper and a relay specialist, so I liked them both there too.
All right, good enough. So I always talk about fishing and hunting. I always tell people I don't think it's a sport, and which isn't to degrade it, but I'm like, I think to have a sport, the other side needs to know it's playing. Does the deer have any idea it's involved here?
Well, yes, I believe they do. And, but I also sometimes feel like the term sport almost isn't not the right category for what we're up to.
Then, and that's the case. Give me a scouting report. I know I know it's athletic. What else? Smart, what cagey, what do you got?
Yeah. Well, what deer have over us is their senses of hearing and especially smell. And when we enter the woods and start doing what we do as humans, the gig is up pretty quick. I mean, deer figure out pretty quickly that we're out there, and they start changing their behavior to avoid us. I mean, that's what they do, whether it's humans or other natural predators. And so in a big way, one of the biggest challenges that we have to count for and is their sense of smell. So we have to play the wind, and oftentimes the deer wins because they figure out we're there before we're in a position to do anything about it.
Yeah. How do I know if I need a deer whistle on my car?
Well, are you living in 1985 or 2025?
I just wondered. Okay, so we don't. Longest you ever spent in a tree stand?
I'm not a very patient person, so I know people that'll do the all day sit. If I'm in there more than 4 hours, I'm starting to get real antsy and I want to make something happen. So I'm not a good patient sitter. I like to move around.
How about you, Trev?
I think 11 hours. I was just trying to do the math. I think 11 hours. I've sat all day once, and I'm usually there an hour before it opens. And I try to use dark to my advantage on the way out, even though I'm scared to walk in the woods in the dark. We'll talk about that a different day.
All right. And Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, what is Rudolph's love interest name?
Oh, I'm picturing it. I'm looking at her. Starts with an F.
She's gorgeous. Clarice.
Clarice. I was going to say, yeah, Clarice. Thank you.
All
for
right.
that
This is from a Disney employee. Who killed Bambi's mom?
A hunter, of course. I don't know his name, but that was
just man.
Oh, sure.
Man. Yeah,
sure.
Better movie: Deer Hunter, Dear Evan Hansen, or Mommy Dearest?
I liked the aspect of what's captured in Deer Hunter, but the best, if you're going to go deer hunting theme, you've got to talk about Escanaba in the Moonlight and Jeff Daniels.
Okay, good. This is like Family Feud. I'm going to go off the board on my own. That's fine. Since I'm in Missouri, in the first 2 decades after Prohibition, this beer in St. Louis outsold Anheuser-Busch and Budweiser. Do you know what it is?
I didn't know there was a beer other than Anheuser-Busch coming out of St. Louis. I don't.
Stag.
Oh, there you go. Nice deer connection. Yeah.
Yep. Have you ever worn camouflage to a wedding or a funeral?
I have worn camouflage to a pre-wedding event where we were wearing camouflage cummerbunds.
Excellent. Is an impala in the deer family?
It is not in the deer family. It is
that
in
is
the
correct.
family.
What color is made up of 13 parts yellow, 3 parts warm red, and 1/4 part black?
A quarter part black. I was going to go fluorescent orange and try to make a deer hunting connection, but I don't know where the black comes from other than some camo pattern on it. So that's where my head went.
Blaze orange. According to the formula and the Pantone number, that is blaze orange.
Oh, okay. Okay, interesting.
What's the name of the Milwaukee Bucks mascot?
Bucky seems too easy.
Trevor?
Bango.
Yeah.
This bourbon is made in Anderson County, Kentucky.
All right. Anderson County, it's got to have a deer theme to it.
No.
Hunting. Okay. Or hunting. I don't know. My favorite one is called Old Forester, which is not hunting, but it's outdoor related. So.
Yeah, no, a wild turkey.
Wild
turkey is made in Anderson County. Okay, I went on to see what kind of permits I could get and what it is I could really go shoot and track down in Wisconsin, okay? So you're going to tell me which one of these is not in these series available.
Okay.
Otter, mink, bobcat, Holstein.
I'd stay away from the Holstein.
Yep, can't shoot a cow. Mourning dove, coot, snipe, parakeet.
Well, not too much to worry about because finding a parakeet is going to be tough in Wisconsin, but that's the one you want to stay away from.
Okay, good. Squirrel, rabbit, wolf, Dalmatian.
Well, don't shoot the Dalmatian. That's a dog, of course. And
there you go.
Wolf, depending on the year, politically, you can or can't. Right now, you can't.
Yeah. Finally, true or false? Venison. It tastes like chicken.
Oh heavens, no.
No. Okay. Very good. That's what I have right there, Trav. That's the hull of it.
That didn't go off the rails at all. I thought that was very well done.
Good.
Very
thanks.
Well done.
And you're still going to keep your job. I think you're totally safe.
Thanks for not putting me out on the edge.
Although they might want you to have a little more patience in the deer stand. I mean, 4 hours, like, come on. That I don't even know that you're trying. It's not even one.
The guys that are staying in the deer stand, they depend on people like me, kicking up the deer and moving them around. And so they need to appreciate those of us that are getting the deer on their feet.
By the way, how do I measure these things? This is completely off the subject now. Like, I get points, right, on the rack. But I'm looking this up, and like some guy had a deer score of 213 and 5/8. Like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, it's been over the last couple of decades. Well, it really comes down to, if you've ever heard of the Boone and Crockett Club, that's like the national organization that's a record keeper for these, animals. And it's a matter of inches of different dimensions on the animal, and it works for different critters. So in a white-tailed deer, for example, it's going to be the length of the main beam, the length of each of the tines, the circumference of the main beam, the width, the spread between the antlers. It's just different ways of capturing the characteristics of the antler. And so, yeah, you get people talking about their buck in terms of a size class of inches. And so it's like, I was a 140 class buck or a 150 class buck or whatever. And some people really get into that because they like the statistics, and others, I measure my trophy in terms of the total inches of backstrap loin that I get to cut off of that deer and put on the table.
That's Trev. I don't know if you told us we had Chase Daniel on one time, on the former quarterback, played 14 years in the NFL, and Mark Brunell took him out hunting. The former Packer guy and Chase posted the picture of the deer he shot, and he's like, "Got my first deer." And honest to God, I wrote back, I'm like, "I think you just shot a greyhound." I don't know what it was. It was the most, but I don't know that it was in any class other than, you again, throw it back. I don't know how he even had it. So it is amazing. But I do, maybe that's part of the argument, Trev, when you're in the beer or you're in the bar having a beer, was how big. What do you have anything, Trev, to write home about?
Yeah, I shot a 10-pointer last year that I have not had the chance to measure because I took it right to the taxidermist. Although I don't think it was Boone and Crockett or Pope and Young or anything like that, but it was by far the most points I've shot. I've shot an 8-pointer. But yeah, last year was my first 10. Is
there a number of things that you can put up in the house or in your rec area before it's just a little too much?
Well, I think that really, again, is that some people really appreciate taxidermy as an art form. I have a very good friend of mine who has a basement full of what he would call capturing the memories of his hunts from and he travels quite a bit, and he's got a lot of them. I, on the other hand, taxidermy is not my thing. There's not a mounted deer head in my house. And so, yeah, eye of the beholder.
Trev, how many could you do before a man it would be like, you're gonna need your own place?
Well, that's just it. Most of the deer that I ever have to mount go down in the man cave, right? And so I don't think any of them are going to become part of our main decoration feature in the living room by any means. But there's a lot of guys that are allowed. I don't think she'd tell me no. I just know better than not to ask. And then there's shoulder mounts. There's European mounts. I did a Euro mount myself once, never again. And most deer camps have a rule that if you shoot a buck, you have to mount it. And that means don't shoot something small.
Don't want to put some embarrassing, like, wow, look, you shot a guinea pig. That's amazing. So, Jeff, I am not a hunter, but I do admire the people that do it. I do respect them. I know what it means to the state, like how integral it is to the party. Like, to me, it's every bit. It screams Wisconsin like cheese and the Packers, and I think it's vital, and I will defend. I'm sometimes I think the Second Amendment's perhaps defended a little too much, but I will defend anybody's right to go out and hunt and thin the herd and do what I think is really a good deed, as you said, community wise, for even people like me who don't hunt, but it's nice that all of a sudden they're not wandering through my backyard and some other things. So appreciate so much your time, your insight, your expertise, and it's terrific to have you. Thanks so much.
You bet. No, I appreciate you guys giving it some coverage. It is a big part of being inside Wisconsin.
We want you to do a whole lot more than just save money. We want your money to grow, just like your dreams. We want you to achieve financial well-being and the feelings that go along with that. Capital Credit Union, doing the right thing.
You mentioned him. I think I have Bango on here. Hang on.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
There you go. Complete. There he is.
There he is.
Now, Bango. Do you know? Okay, smart guy. Do you know how he was named? How he got his name?
No idea.
Eddie Doucette, the first and famed play-by-play voice of the Milwaukee Bucks, the guy who christened the sky hook, the term sky hook. When a guy would hit a jump shot, he'd go, "Bango!" That was one of his calls.
Oh.
And thus, that is why that animal, that mascot is Bango, was from Eddie Doucette's call.
Bango the Buck. I love it.
Yeah.
I love that episode, J.A. Thanks for jumping aboard the deer hunting bandwagon just for at least one show.
Again, and I do think that I think you would find that in a majority of Wisconsin. I don't want to go crazy, but that even people that don't hunt understand the importance of the hunt and hunters in the state, even if they don't, right? Some people morally object. I get it. That's you taking down God's creature. I get all those people too. But I do think there's a lot of people in Wisconsin understand the importance of those 9 days to the state, its economy, the fabric of the state, who we are, and all those things.
Someone will hit a deer driving home from deer camp after the season's over. That's how many deer there are. So at some point, people need to agree that if it's not us, it's the vehicles, frankly. I mean, and that is far more dangerous.
I've done that. I've hit one,
I've got one.
Or I tell people all the time, like they'll go, how far was Green Bay from Minneapolis? And I'll go, you just go, it's out there. It's, whatever. But I said, you drive along old bloody 29 and it's not as bloody anymore. It's a little 4, they've made it bigger. And I'm like, by the way, it's bloody 29, not because people have accidents on it. It's because people hit deer on the road all the time. Right. At least that's how it was related to me in my youth, is why they called that road bloody 29. And it had nothing to do with car accidents. It had with people, deer hunting with their Chevy. So,
right.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of your childhood, bloody 29 and John, Wisconsin, what's the tale this week?
Well, first of all, I feel like I should make this quick because you look like you were literally ready to go climb in a tree stand. Like, do you have stuff packed? Are you ready to go right now?
Deer hunting shirt. Can you see
that? You keep showing it to us. Like, both I can read, and also I am not colorblind, so I can read that.
I think
this is kind of got deer hunting, deer implications, and bloody 29. So most kids, when they got in the car and you had a long drive, you played like the ABC game, right? Or you played I Spy. So I had my brother Bill, who is, I don't know how to explain it. He's my older brother, and you always admire your older brothers and so. But so this is sort of demented. Sometimes we would play cows and cross, that's simply as you drive down the road. If you have cows on your side, you get those cows. Right. So if you look and you go, oh, look, like there's 100 cows. Now you have 100 cows. And so you'd see who had the most cows on a drive down to wherever you were going. But if you passed a church, you had to bury the cows. So that's one stupid game. But then we used to also play, this is my brother, and this used to infuriate my mom. So we kind of had to play it on that. We used to play Dead Animal Zoo. So as you went by, if you saw a roadkill, you're like, oh, look, I got a raccoon in my zoo. Hey, look. I've got a deer in my zoo. Hey, look, here's a squirrel. Well, but sometimes it would be unrecognizable. And my brother would be like, that's a baboon. You can't have a baboon. And that's when things would get off the rails. And my mom would go like, if you guys are playing that game again, and she wouldn't turn the car around, but she'd just glare and you knew it would. And so then you'd go by some roadkill and she'd turn around preemptively, like just to see if anybody was going to say anything. Right. And that's where I learned about the Himalayan possum. Do you know what that is?
No.
It's a possum, Himalayan on the road there. I don't recommend this for all kids, but it is kind of fun. So if you get a chance, but just be careful because I don't think your mom or any sane person's really going to take to this game. But in addition to ABC or SY, go ahead, play a little Dead Animal Zoo for a few hours, see how you go, see how a few 100 miles under your belt, see what you could have in there. And again, if it's unrecognizable, it could technically be a baboon. No one would know. Just know that that's going to be a hard argument to explain to the people in the front seat. What are you talking about a baboon, And then listen, sometimes you get a good one. Like every once in a while, your dad would be an arbitrator, like that was not a baboon. That was just a deer. It's a deer.
Help the cause.
So it's gruesome. It's gross. It's horrible. I don't know that it fits the theme. And I'm hoping my mom doesn't watch this because she did not like us playing Dead Animal Zoo.
Dead Animal Zoo takes that's
teach
a lot more
to the
exciting.
Boys when honestly, teach that to the boys when you drive somewhere. See how it goes over with Amanda.
Yeah, I won't tell her it's coming. We're just gonna play Dead Animal Zoo without her knowing. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Baboon.
Yeah.
All right. Good luck to all the hunters, and thanks for tuning in to the non-hunters. That actually was a really educational and pure Wisconsin episode of the Inside Wisconsin Show.
Yeah. Actually, for this episode, it's the Outside Wisconsin Show.
Yeah, that's it. All right. For John, I'm Trevor. We'll see you next time. Good luck to the hunters out there. Be safe as you are, Wisconsin. So I grew up in Jefferson, Wisconsin, and there's a huge festival there called Gemeetlikite.
Sure.
Do you know what that means?
I do.
What does it mean?
It means community and conviviality and joy and sort of just like the togetherness of being at the same table.
So fun.
It's all about having a good time, right? So, and that's like something beautifully German, right? This sort of beer garden culture where you show up to a table with a bunch of strangers and then you leave as friends.
Farmers, brewers, hunters, packers, badgers, cheeseheads, neighbors. No matter what name we go by, we are bound together by our roots. These are the people, the stories, and the statriotism from inside Wisconsin. Welcome to Deeper Roots with Blaine's Farm and Fleet. I'm home. This is amazing. This is where I'm meant to be. This is Kegel's Inn. That's Julian. 100 years of this. First off, thank you.
Our pleasure. Yeah, thanks for having us on the show.
There's a lot to cover today. 100 years worth, give or take.
Yep.
Let's start at the beginning. This is a family business, and it has been since 1924.
Correct. Yeah. December 5th, my great-grandpa applies for his permit through the city of West Allis. And what's going on during that time in 1924? Yeah, beer is illegal.
None of that.
Prohibition's raging. And so he licenses it as a soda pop parlor, in quotations.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So they built a small little bar down in the basement. They're brewing beer. So this was like headquarters for Prohibition in West Allis, right?
For everyone.
For everyone, yeah. For the cops, the mayors, the local community. Everybody knew, like on brew day, you came to Kegel's Inn the next day.
How did they get busted?
Well, that wasn't for 3 more years, right? So
good run.
Yeah, it was a pretty good run.
And then
1927, May 1st, my grandma is serving booze to customers. And like a local guy, a local buddy of John Kegel, my great-grandpa, he comes in and he's like, "Hey, John, I just bought a new car. Why don't you come take a look at it?" So John goes outside. Anna, my grandma, is totally out of the blue, caught by surprise as all of these enforcement agents come in and find in her moo-moo all these sewn-in pockets full of booze.
Outstanding.
Super great. So it's like documented that Kegel's Inn might not have survived.
But
right?
this is in the speakeasy, which is downstairs.
No, this was up here. The whole place was the speakeasy.
Woo.
Yeah, which is why we've got these beautiful stained glass windows.
I was gonna say, wasn't that frowned upon then?
Yeah, but you couldn't see what was going on inside.
Okay. But it wasn't Kegel's Inn back then. It
Correct.
was
Kegel's Place. So John Kegel's Place, right? And that existed until basically the end of Prohibition. But here's the beauty. So 1927, my grandma gets the ticket. They get smart, they get wise, they hire a lawyer. That lawyer tells them that there's whispers in legislation that Wisconsin's gonna be the first state to repeal Prohibition, okay?
Cheers.
Cheers to that, right? So that actually happens. In 1928, the lawsuit gets dropped because Wisconsin becomes the first to decriminalize Prohibition. And it goes at a state level, right? So even though federally it was still masked as Prohibition, Wisconsin was game on.
Wisconsin was the first state to decriminalize
Correct.
alcohol sales.
Yes.
Today days old,
Yeah.
but not surprised.
Yeah. Well, how much business was being done with all the breweries with Schlitz, Pabst, Blatz, right? Like these places were pumping out millions of barrels and then all of a sudden were squashed to nothing. So they had to put a lot of pressure on legislation to get their business back.
The murals in here are incredible, and I read that they took 7 years, inside and outside. Is that true?
That's true, yes.
This was a gentleman that your family knew?
Yes, Peter Grice. His paperwork shows that he's from Darmstadt and became friends with my great-grandpa. From 1933, when he first started, to 1940, that 7-year period, what else was going on in worldwide politics?
War.
Being German was not very popular, right? So actually great-grandma had him redo some of the more German sayings and some of the inscriptions on the wall to make it look like we were more aligned with the Allies.
Wow.
Right?
The things you have to think of
Yeah,
to
totally.
keep a business going that just happens to be connected to the German heritage.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on with these murals, I'm just starting to realize as we sit here, including monkeys playing cards and cheating. They're cheating.
They are cheating.
What is happening?
When men drink copious amounts of beer, they turn into monkeys, and that's the moniker.
Really?
Essentially, yeah. So there's like a whole transition at the door. Basically, a guy in the moonlight sort of traipsing away from the restaurant, and he turns into the monkey by the time he gets home.
And you took 22 members of your staff and
Yeah.
a couple really good customers over to Germany here just a month ago to celebrate Oktoberfest and your 100th.
Well, we're turning 100, so let's do it big. And we've been schlepping being German in this little sort of microcosm to our staff for 10 years. Now let's go show them why we do it, and what happens in Germany is actually really authentic to what we do here.
So the business model, though, has changed massively.
For sure.
What do you got cooking upstairs, too?
So we actually converted the whole upstairs to Airbnbs.
How many are up there?
There's 6.
There's 6 Airbnbs. How's that going?
It's great, you know, I mean, especially because when people come to town, we're super close to American Family Field, so it's walkable, and they can pregame here, have some beers, walk to the park, have a great baseball game, come back, watch the live music for the end of the night, go upstairs and sleep in this like super antique hotel.
What are you known for?
We're definitely known as a beer hall. We're definitely known for our high quality scratch made food. So German specialties. Sauerbraten, ever heard of that?
No, but are we gonna try that maybe?
We could, yeah. It's like a big sirloin that we age in red wine vinegar, and then it's brewed with a ginger snap gravy, right?
I never leave it.
Totally.
This is incredible.
So
and you make a mean pretzel.
We do, of course. We sell hundreds and hundreds of pretzels a week.
Do you do that here?
Thank God, no.
Oh, you don't?
Yes. Milwaukee Pretzel Company is one of our big partners. They studied in Bavaria. They brought German pretzels to Milwaukee, and they crush it. Our pork shanks are like big shoulder hocks. Then we've got our roasted boneless duck. So we take all the bones out, make it super easy to eat. Serve it over homemade dressing and scratch gravy with cranberry sauce. It's like Thanksgiving,
Can
but
you hear
better.
my stomach?
Yeah.
Literally, it's like speaking to me. There is just so much nostalgia in here. It's one of those places where we could sit and talk and view for hours, literally hours.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think we just go now. I think we just kind of check out, including this beer garden, which you talked about.
Absolutely.
Live music and all those things. Can I move in upstairs?
Yeah, it's gonna cost you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, no
fair
problem.
to that.
Yeah, deal.
We are now in the beer garden, and I'm never leaving. This is unbelievable. So, your lovely bride, Stephanie, who's in charge of all things meals and food here at Kegel's Inn, made us a spread in the beer garden. But before we dive in, which is about 7 seconds from right now for me, tell us about what you did out here, because this changed the 100 years of Kegel's Inn into something completely different.
2018, we threw a couple parties in the street, so we had to get neighbor permission to like close the road for a couple hours. And then the mayor was here and he's like, man, this just feels so good to have this street be closed. Being between two 100-year-old buildings, having the space for a beer garden just sort of felt right. So we tried it for a full summer, and then it was such a success that we kind of petitioned the city to keep it going. So now we own the street. The city granted it to us for us long term, and we were coming up on 100 years now, so we're gonna tent this thing for the whole winter. We're gonna heat it, we're gonna put bands. We brewed a bunch of Centennial beer with our partners at local breweries. So we're gonna have a Doppelbock release for our birthday party, which ends up being Repeal Day too. So on December 5th, 1933, Prohibition is repealed. That's when we're having our party here.
So you have worked really, really hard, Julian, to keep the family tradition, if you will, alive. What are you going to do to make sure that you stay true to that here for the next 100 years?
Ultimately, we have to remember that people come here for community, for great food, and a great atmosphere.
How do you compare that to who we are as a state? What is it about Wisconsin that makes that work?
Wisconsin in general has just this heartbeat of Gemütlichkeit, right? You used it before. It's this conviviality, it's about having fun, it's about meeting strangers and being nice, this Midwest nice that everybody sort of like wants to be involved with. I think the beer garden is a perfect representation of how we are as a people in Wisconsin.
You've shown us around the restaurant. You told us all the hidden secrets of the history. There's a large amount of food in front of me. I'm not a small mammal. Cheers, I'm diving in. Thanks for having us out. We are going to hammer this food, and this is ridiculous. This is the giant pretzel. It's about to be gone.
I believe it.
So over there, they carry like 10 of these at one time.
Yeah, you want to practice?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think that's good for your business model. Do you speak German?
A little bit. Yeah.
Prost.
Prost. Yeah, we're getting there.
What's a beer called?
Ein Bier.
That's how they say it? Beer?
Yeah.
Oh, it's B-I-E-R.
Yeah, it's beer. Yeah, exactly.
You know what the bad news is? That right there is going to make the show. That sucks. How are you staying true to your family legacy? What are you doing to make sure... I can't. There's a friggin' bee and I'm losing it. I am... Get out of here. Ah! Well, what else do you say after an episode like that, other than Prost, right? Man, those beers were tall and good. Another outstanding episode of the Blaine's Farm and Fleet Deeper Roots. Never cease to be inspired by these deep-rooted family stories. This was another great one. Man, lots of German heritage. All right, sending our thanks to Julian Kegel and the entire Kegel family for keeping the Inn's 100-year legacy alive. And most importantly, those authentic family recipes. I can speak from experience, super good, super full after that one. Speaking of 100 years, they're throwing 100 parties to celebrate, because of course they are. So check the schedule online, kegelsin100.com. Come eat, come drink, and be merry. Even plan to stay at one of their upper Airbnb units above the restaurant and bar. Pretty cool. Maybe you enjoyed the episode and have a deep-rooted story of your own to share with us. Make sure to head to the website, fill out the form, farmandfleet.com/deeperroots. We love hearing from you guys and sharing all of these stories. If you're watching on YouTube, remember, like, subscribe. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're listening, go ahead and leave a 5-star review on the particular app that you are catching this podcast on. All right, that's it for now. Auf Wiedersehen? I don't know. See you next time.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Remember to subscribe on YouTube, leave a review, smash the like button, just get with us.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Shut up and sit down.